Hey everyone, welcome back to another Magicavoxel tutorial where we make tiny cubes look amazing. Today I'm stepping away from our cozy little home to focus entirely on materials and display settings. So grab a coffee, get comfy, and let's level up your voxel art. And if you find this tutorial helpful, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. Now let's get into it. First up, we have the material panel. This is where we tell Magicavoxel how our voxels should look. First, we have diffuse, the basic material. Diffuse is the default, no fancy business material. It's matte, non-reflective, and perfect for walls, floors, and natural materials like stone. Next, we have metal. So in order to see that, first of all, you have to increase metallic value, which is something that controls how metal-like the surface is. Next, we have surface roughness. Roughness adjusts how smooth or rough the metal appears. So if you have a low or zero roughness, you're gonna have a perfect mirror-like reflections. But if you have a higher value of roughness, you're gonna have a brushed metal, kind of like factory metal or scratched. Next, we have IOR, or index of refraction, which affects how light bends and reflects on your surface. Next, we have specular, which controls the brightness of reflections. If you have lower values, you're gonna have weaker, softer reflections. If you have higher ones, it's gonna be brighter and more intense reflection. Next, we have emit. To show you guys that, I'm going to create a little cube right here to use as an emitting object. So what emit is? It is used to make a voxel glow and emit light. First, we have emission. Emission controls the brightness of the glow. So when you increase it, you can see it is emitting light, but it's not as much because you have to have your power up. Power controls how much the light actually spreads in the scene. That's how you can actually see your lights better. And then we have LDR, which is short for low dynamic range, which controls the overall intensity and color saturation of the glow. So for example, if you have your LDR at 0, the cube is glowing, but it looks less saturated than your original color that you picked for it. So if you want the color of your light to show, you have to increase LDR. Okay, next up, we have glass. The glass material lets you create transparent, reflective surfaces with different levels of transparency and roughness. Let me just put more objects in front of the glass so you guys can see it better. So let's increase transparency. And then we have roughness. Roughness controls how sharp or blurry reflections appear. So if you have a low roughness, you're gonna have perfectly clear glass, like a clean window. But if you have higher roughness values, you're gonna have something like a frosted glass. Next, we have index of refraction, or IOR, which controls how light passes through and changes direction inside a transparent object. So the higher the refraction value, the more reflective the glass appears. If you set it close to 1, the object becomes nearly invisible, like water. And at higher values, glass starts to look more reflective. Just tweak it and see what works best. In the glass options, we have these 4 icons that you can see here. First one is absorb media. The density slider affects how much light gets absorbed. So if you have low density, you're gonna have almost clear glass. And if you have high density, you're gonna have thicker and more colored glass that absorbs more light. For the density value, you can go above 100 to see the effect even better. Okay, next we have scatter media, which is the cloud icon over here. What it does is it adds foggy or smoky effects inside the glass material. So as usual, the density controls how thick the fog is, higher the value, stronger the effect, and phase adjusts how the light scatters inside the glass. Next, we have emissive media, which is the sun icon. What it does is it turns the glass material into a glowing surface. Again, you have the density and the phase to play with. So as you can see, it kind of looks like a glowing piece of plastic or something like that. But what's the difference between emissive media and emit material? What's the real difference? Let me just quickly copy paste this so I can show them next to each other. So for this one, we have emissive media, and for the other one, we're gonna have emit material. So basically, when you increase the emission value, the object glows and illuminates nearby surfaces. But emissive media, yes, it looks bright. It does light up a little bit the surrounding area, but it doesn't actually emit light the way emit material does it. So objects using emissive media appear to glow, but don't actually cast light onto other objects. But if you need something to actually light up a scene, you have to use emit material. If you just want something to glow on its own, but not affect lighting as much, you can use emissive media. I hope it's clear to you guys. If you still have any questions, you can ask me in the comments. I would love to answer you guys. Okay, next we have subsurface scattering media. What it does is it scatters light inside the material instead of just passing straight through. So it creates soft glowing effect in translucent materials like wax, skin, or frosted glass. To explain to you guys, I'm going to go to another scene of mine to show you. So as you can see, I'm increasing the transparency of this box all the way up. As you can see, this is like a blurry frosted glass. But now let's go to subsurface scattering. You crank up the density all the way, even above 100. To see the effect better, maybe let's change the color. Not sure if you can see, but it somehow reminds me of like a skin or wax. So basically, light enters and diffuses inside the object before exiting, making it glow naturally, as you can see. Okay, back to our simple scene. Now let's go to blend material. Blend material lets you combine different material properties. It's like a mix and match magic. Think of it as the best of both worlds. It can be partially reflective like metal, slightly transparent like glass, or even something in between. So just as other panels, we have roughness, IOR, specular, metallic, transparent, and those other options to control. So just to play around and see how it works. Maybe you can have it a really high transparency and a little bit reflective like metal. Creates kind of like a plastic, specific kind of plastic. You can even change the color to see better. I really love this kind of transparent plastic vibes. Now let's try with the cloud media. Let's see how it works. Still kind of looks like plastic. And This is subsurface scattering, more metallic surface. It's just a matter of playing around with the settings. I'm going to apply the blend material on this little cube over here, so maybe it helps you understand better. I'm making it hollow, so you can see how light reacts when it enters. Just playing around, a little bit of metallic surface to have a nice reflection. See how different media and settings can have different vibes and different feels to the material. It's just a matter of playing around. So blend is perfect for unique materials that don't fit into just metal or glass. Okay, next let's move on to cloud. So to show you guys that, just created some random shapes with Voxel tool and put them on top of each other, copy pasted, rotated as we always do, to somehow create an illusion of a cloud. Obviously, it's not the perfect shape for a cloud, but it does the job. In cloud section, we again have the density and the phase. Density, which controls how thick or thin the cloud or fog is. So the lower the density, the thinner the clouds you're gonna have, and the higher density, you're gonna have heavy storm clouds, thick smoke, or deep fog. And phase adjusts how light interacts with the cloud material. In the last video, we were talking about scatter. So scatter controls how deep light travels through the cloud material. So if you have a higher scatter, it creates softer, more glowing clouds. But if you have lower scatter, it makes the clouds darker and denser. But the thing is, if you increase scatter too much, it's gonna take up more time to render and it's gonna make your scene heavier. Unless you really need it, I would say just keep it at the default. And to get the most out of our cloud material while we're rendering, we have to have MIS scatter on. MI scatter is all about how light interacts with fog and other transparent materials. It actually helps them blend more naturally with their surroundings. So it's always good to remember to have it on when you have any kind of volumetric material in your scene. Again, we have this 4 media for our cloud material as well. Emissive material turns the cloud into a light emitting fog, which is useful for if you want some glowing, fantasy kind of clouds. And subsurface scattering. So let's get back to our cloud. You remember I told you how important lighting is. So let me show you how just a change of HDR or like a lighting setup can affect your cloud material. So let's go for like a golden hour sunset kind of HDR. Lower down intensity of our sun to just have the light coming from HDR. See how it looks like a puffy, dreamy kind of cloud? You can't even see as much that the model is kind of messed up and it's not perfect cloud shape. So it's just a matter of playing around and finding the right setting for your shape. Let's try another. See how different it is with each HDR. So you can either have really realistic kind of clouds, or you can have fantasy, stylized kind of clouds with different settings. Can you see how ground color is actually affecting cloud? Let's bring in another HDR just to see how it looks. I love how a volumetric material reacts with light in Magicavoxel. Now that our material look amazing, let's improve how light interacts with them using the sample panel. Let me just turn off everything so we can go through them one by one together. First up, we have stochastic mode. This helps smooth out noisy or grainy renders. It's really great for cleaner results, but keep that in mind that it slows down rendering a bit. So you can keep it for your final renders or when you want to see how everything looks. Next, we have MIS Reflect, which is short for Multiple Importance Sampling. This one is to improve your reflective surfaces in the final render. It sharpens reflections, making them look crisp and more realistic. MI Scatter I already explained in our cloud material. Next up is Pixelated mode. So let me zoom in to show you what it actually does. So as you can tell by the name, this setting forces this kind of pixelated look on your render. You're going to have sharp edges everywhere, no smooth shading, everything is pixel perfect, kind of like pixel art. So if you're going for that classic pixel art style, this setting is your best friend. Next, we have anti-aliasing. Can you see all those jagged edges? The lines don't look that smooth, but if you have this setting on, it softens the edges and makes everything look cleaner and more sharper. Next, we have shadow. This one controls basic shadows in your scene. Having it off makes your scene look flat and without a depth. But if you have it on, it definitely adds more depth and realism to your scene. I would say keep this on for most renders unless you're doing a stylized look. Okay, next we have TR shadow or transparent shadows. It makes light pass through instead of creating solid black shadows. I'm going to quickly create a transparent cube right here to show you guys what I mean. So you can see here, TR shadow is off. So the shadow casted by this transparent cube is kind of black. Not black, but it doesn't have any color. But as soon as you turn on TR shadow, you can see the shadow now is tinted and is affected by the color of our glass. It adds a nice layer of realism to your scene. Okay, next in geometry section, we have sparse. Let me bring up another scene so you guys can see it better. This is one of my older work. So when I render this scene, which is a rather big and heavy scene with sparse off, you can see that my model is cut off. When you have a higher voxel count scene or a bigger scene, in order to have all of your scene visible, you have to have sparse on in your renders to be able to see the whole scene. Actually, now that we are here, this is the perfect model to show you another sample of when you have MIS scatter on. Can you see how it affects the fog? Or when I turn off and on MIS reflection and MIS scatter. They really improve the overall look of your renders, so make sure to have them on, at least for your final renders. By the way, the material I used for base of this cube is cloud. And the material I'm using here, as you can see, is just a self-illuminating transparent glass. Now let's get back to our simple scene again, and let's go to the next tab, which is the display. Display panel controls how your scene looks while rendering in Magicavoxel. First, we have grid section. But first of all, you have to display your grids on the bottom of the panel to be able to see the grid. So toggle it on. Now you can see the grids. The first one is space. It means the space between each cell. Also, you can change the color of your grid. And you can change the thickness of it. Here you can see it says ground and it's on. What it means is you only are going to have the grid applied on your ground. If you turn it off, the grid is going to be applied on all of your objects. Let me change the color so you can see better. So let's turn it back to ground. Change the color of the grid. You can still have grid even if you don't have the ground. So let me just turn off the ground. You can still see the grid on your objects without even having a ground. Next, we have edge section. So edge defines voxel borders. So to display edges, press Ctrl E or go down, click on this icon over here to display your edges. Something I forgot to mention when we were in material panel is, let's just say that you want to turn everything, every object in your scene into one specific material. You have this all button right here on the right. If you have it on and if you change to any material, it's going to apply that material to your whole scene. It will even apply it if you have a ground, it will apply it to your ground. That's actually one way to have a reflective ground. So you can see as I change the settings, it's applying it to all of my scene and all of my objects. Okay, back to our display panel. With edge width, you can control how thick or thin the outlines around voxels appear. So you can control the thickness of the edge. You can also change the color of the edge. Let me just turn it back off. Next, we have ground. Ground is base of your scene. So when you turn it on and off, it turns the ground plane on and off. And for ground, you only have one setting, which is horizon. So the horizon setting controls how the ground blends into the sky. When you have it at 0, you can actually see a sharp line separating your ground and the sky. You can see the horizon line. And as you increase the value of the horizon, it creates a smoother gradient and adds more depth to your scene. Next up, we have background section. Let me just turn off my ground so you can see the background better. Again, we need to display background down here to be able to see. You can change the color of your background. and you see this transparent option here. If you have that on, it will make the background fully transparent. So it would just export your objects with a transparent background. Let's turn back on the ground. Next, we have scale section. This tool allows you to stretch or resize your model along these three axes. As you can see, it stretches your whole scene in X, Y, and Z axes. Next, we have shape section. So this section lets you change how voxels are rendered in your scene, from classic cubes to smooth organic shapes. Actually, for this one, I'm going to bring up one of Magicavoxel's default voxel files, this cute little T-Rex over here, so you can see better. First, we have cube, which is the classic voxel look. Next, we have Lego, which turns voxels into Lego bricks, with that signature stud on top, which is really cool. The next one is MC, or marching cubes. It converts all those blocky voxels into soft forms. It's great for sculpting, terrain, and organic shapes. Next, we have clay, which is a soft sculpted look. It's kind of similar to marching cubes, but with a more handmade sculpted effect. Next, we have sphere, which turns every voxel into a sphere. On the bottom, you see this cell value that you can increase or decrease, which adjusts the size of the sphere. Cylinder is the same as sphere. It replaces voxels with this cylindrical shape, which you can still control the size with cell. I just wanted to add a quick note here. If you're using any shape besides the cube, you might notice things don't work when sparse in geometry section is on. I'm not exactly sure why this happens. I would have loved to have, I don't know, a Lego effect on my bigger scenes. I still haven't found a way to keep the sparse on while having different shapes, so I don't use it often. But if you know a fix, please do drop a comment and let me know. This is something that's been on my nerves for so many years. So yeah, I'd love to figure it out together. So this is one of my older works where I want to show you guys how I use the simple materials we just talked about to make this. You can see this is the setting I used for transparent materials. For emissive materials. You can see how different materials can change the whole vibe of your scene. Okay, so that's it for now. Hope you had fun diving into materials and display settings. In the next video, we're talking about cameras, image settings, and how to render high-res and gorgeous scenes. So, if you want your voxels to look their absolute best, stick around for that. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment to tell me what you're experimenting with. I love seeing what you guys create. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.